It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Here we go. We made it to a Friday. Woohoo! All right. My favorite audio from the mayoral debate in New York City last night.
Yeah, okay.
Ready? Okay,
All
here
right.
we go.
All
My
right.
favorite. And we did not discuss this in our pre-show meeting.
Okay. All right.
I wanted to use this as a surprise.
All right, okay.
Okay, here we go. All right.
One more before Sally starts asking about schools. A show of hands. Who supports Kathy Hochul for re-election?
It's a decision that should be made after this general election.
So no decision.
No one raised their hand.
Ouch.
No one.
Ouch. Ouch.
Not even. I love the statement on this post. Nobody raised their hands. Nobody. Not even Chris Cuomo, who chose her as his lieutenant governor, or Mamdani, who she endorsed over Cuomo for New York City mayor.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
That's just great.
That silence is deafening, though. I mean, I know they wanted show of hands, but it was like, anyone? Nobody?
When I woke up, because I woke up about 9:30, and most of the response I saw, the analysis, was criticism of the actual interviewers. I can't tell how many. A number of people, including what's his name? I can't think of his name at the moment. It just popped out of my mind. Mark Halperin said, "We're 40 minutes into this. Nobody's asked a question of the economy, substance, or anything. It's all personality driven." Like, whoa.
Yeah, they also didn't have, I don't think they had a great control of their own stage, which is going to happen, when you have three people up there. But from what I saw, and I didn't watch the entire thing, I went back. I thought, I'm going to go back and watch the highlights. It's like the NFL now. I can watch the highlights later. I thought to myself, if the rest of this debate goes, based on this 20, 25 minutes that I watched, if it goes like this, it's not moving any needles for anybody, one way or the other. And I think it's pretty clear. And here in a few weeks, I think New York City they're going to elect Mamdani. I don't see anything by now that could change that.
And I'm reading this here. Socialist Mamdani denies he will defund the police if elected New York City mayor. Uh-huh. He called the NYPD racist and anti-queer in 2020. Mm-hmm. And then, Cuomo pounded him on it, said, no, you wanted to defund the police. You said that you defund the police. And then he came back and said, Cuomo wants to bring up tweets from 2020 around the same time he was sending seniors to their deaths. Wow, what a selection of candidates for New York City mayor.
No, you said that during the pre-show meeting, and that nails it right there.
Because Sliwa doesn't count.
Right.
Republican has no chance of winning in New York City in 2025. Sorry, there's just no chance.
Right.
So it's all, and think about it. The two major, Adams had to get out because Adams, if he would have stayed in, might have been around 1% now. He would have been a 1%er. What's that? The incumbent who has 1% support. What was he at? 9 or 8%?
Yeah, and falling. Yeah.
And so the two major candidates, a communist
and a disgraced governor.
And an absolutely disgraced governor. I mean, that's what you have. That's how, we were talking the other day about the strength of Republican candidates for president of the United States. And we were talking about, for example, J.D. Vance, DeSantis, and also Marco Rubio, who has really raised his profile.
Yeah.
Oh, and I did see some pollster asked that a day later. It was in there. It was like, who would you choose? And those three names were the names that were in the poll. I hadn't
Those
seen
were
that.
the numbers. Those were the numbers we or the names we looked at. Yeah,
and so, but you think about it, it's just like Cuomo Mamdani. And there just isn't anyone in the Democrat Party that you can look at as a leader who isn't bat soup crazy.
Yeah, there really isn't.
And Fetterman, we'll get to the Axios story a little bit later on, and the story that the Democrats plan to dump Fetterman. They don't want Fetterman there. He should become a Republican. He really should.
I would say, because and he's been asked, it seems, several times lately, this question is coming up more and more for him, and he keeps saying, no, I'm not going to. And you say that when you believe you're going to need your current party in order to remain in office. But if that's no longer viable, if it truly is, the party's going to turn on him, I think there has to be a consideration. I don't know. He may do one of those things where he says, I'm going to become an independent. But that only works after you've won. When you win and then you get into office and then you drop your party. Because running as an independent is very different. Because at that point you split it. Yeah. Right. And I think,
split the vote three ways.
Right. And so I think, ultimately, I don't know, he may change parties. If he's going to do nothing, that's when you also drop your party. I'm an independent. You don't become a Republican, but I'm an independent. And you're hired on as a paid guest on one of the news channels or something like that. Well, I'm an independent now. Like Corinne Jean-Pierre, she drops her party. It's like, are you kidding me?
Well, but I think him staying in and running again, everything is different now than it was before.
Well, no, you make a point.
You look
that
at
in
you're
his
talking.
state,
You're talking Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Not talking nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking Pennsylvania. I know his numbers with Democrats are down, and I don't know if he decided to switch parties as a Republican, he might be primaried there too and then be out. Well, but the fact is, he's definitely going to be primaried. Axios said the Democrats, they want him out. He's not. Everybody's got to be. If you're not insane,
that's what we've
been saying. You can't be a part of the Democratic Party.
Yep. It was, in fact, Stacey Abrams was one of those that said it. When was that? Was that the night after the Virginia governor's race a few years ago? And she said, look, because somebody asked her identity politics and the whole thing. She said, no, identity politics is working. We need more people. Basically what she was saying, we need more radicals. She didn't phrase it that way, but we need more radicals to go out and espouse the ideas. Well, New York City got one. Mamdani, he's it. We just need somebody who can seemingly get the message across. And he is.
Yeah.
And, with Fetterman, I guess my lack of confidence is that I just haven't seen him commit on the ideas, on the issues, on a few issues he has. But if you're going to switch and run as a Republican, there needs to be a number of key issues where you have a change of heart. Now, he's pro-Israel. We talked about that. He knows how radical the Democratic Party is. Those are two big pluses. And as you point out, it is Pennsylvania.
Well,
so he could get away with not becoming the full-on, hardcore conservative in a state like that, and becoming a Republican and running, and then them saying, he's still Fetterman. We think he's got common sense or whatever. And still win. So we'll see.
But I don't know how liberal when it comes to things like nationalize health care the Republican Party is going to go. Right? Because I saw Fetterman the other day say, no, I want the subsidies. I went, well, no, and I go, well, wait a minute. My first reaction was, well, then he could never be a Republican. I went, well, wait a minute. Maybe now he can be a Republican, because my fear is that Republicans will go through all of this, and eventually as we get closer to Thanksgiving, and I saw online yesterday some just headlines out there. All hell will break loose around Thanksgiving if they can't come to a deal.
Oh, yeah.
But Republicans stick it out, and then they win this without compromising anything, and then they crumble on everything down the road.
Right. Yeah.
Because Republicans completely think differently about Obamacare than they did back a decade ago.
Yeah, they do.
And so, and I'm in the mindset of no, my mindset hasn't changed.
Right.
Obamacare stinks.
Yeah.
You've got to have more competition. You've got to have more price transparency in it. But competition, like anything else, is what will make health care more affordable. You believe that the government in a monopoly will do it, and more Republicans believe that, well, then you're living in a delusional economic world.
And that pricing goes hand in hand with the competition, because that's the idea, is that if with that kind of transparency and pricing, we've talked about this for years, then that competition kicks in. We've actually seen that, in limited cases, but as long as you're in the situation you're in now, where somebody else needs to pay for my health care, and that's a growing popularity at that level. And as we pointed out yesterday, the Democrats are the ones that put the sunset provision.
Well, yeah, there's two headlines, two headlines from Breitbart here that I found interesting. James Clyburn, Affordable Care Act isn't affordable without the tax credits, and Ro Khanna from the Democratic Party. Democrats passing ACA having sunset for subsidies doesn't mean we created the health crisis. They put in the temporary subsidies, saying they're going to go out now because they're just temporary for COVID.
Right.
And now the prices have skyrocketed on it. And so they've got to be, they've got to be permanent. But the reality is, and to get around all the BS on this, it's this simple. California, and we've said this before, that's why we believe in federalism. That's why we believe in the 50 states being able to do whatever the heck they want to do. Get the federal government out of it. If California wants a state health care system, do it. If Colorado wanted to have a state health care system, do it. If Vermont wanted a state health care system, do it. They all said they wanted it, and then it came down to the price, and they said, hell no. And so health care in this country, forget about all the other BS that they're talking about, comes down to one thing. If we can't borrow money from future generations to pay for what we want now, we don't want nationalized health care. It's that simple. They want the federal government to do it because you'll borrow from your children and grandchildren to get the health care that you want today under a monopoly system, which will make health care more expensive.
Yep.
That's the reality of where we are right now. You don't have to go and do a 5-hour lecture on it. It's that simple.
Yep. Pretty simple. And eventually you get to nationalize health care. Eventually you get there because you break the back of the private sector, and that's what and then you're just borrowing far beyond.
And there isn't one Republican that I know stating what I just said right now.
No, I haven't heard him.
Which is why I have the fear that they will crumble.
Yeah. Yep.
Nobody's talking about, look, we got to get back to a more competitive, transparent healthcare system. No one.
No.
I don't know. Maybe Rand Paul has said it in a speech, but I haven't heard it.
No, I haven't heard him actually. They're focused on the whole Obamacare thing, but not the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What the basis is, what the problem is. And really, the sunset is kind of irrelevant because once you put that into motion, the pathology of dependency dictates that it's always going to be there. And if you don't renew it, extend it, and keep it going, then you're raising healthcare costs. That's how they promote it. They knew that when they put the provision in, the sunset provision in, oh, it's just temporary for COVID. Nothing in terms of giveaways is temporary.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. You should only use it in good driving conditions, during daylight hours, and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. You want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, Eric, one of the things is, as I just went a little bit crazy there, but it drives me nuts because it's since we've had, how long has the shutdown been now? Is it 2 weeks?
Yeah, three, right? It was, yeah, because it's beginning of October.
Okay, so 17 days.
Almost, yeah.
All right, well, or close to it, and because it's the same argument going back and forth. You know that and it's true. The Republicans want a clean bill. They've got that point. The Republicans want a clean bill, and they'll discuss everything later.
Yeah,
and it said, okay, so I've heard that argument 1,000 times, and I agree with the Republicans on it. And I understand that because you and I have talked about this before, when the Democrats make the same false argument, the only argument you have is the one argument that's the truth. But it's just the point where in the back of my mind, I'm just sitting here going, okay, but will the Republicans cave? Not now, but will the Republicans cave when they actually negotiate health care? And will the subsidies stay? And so all this thing that, because the subsidies were just supposed to be temporary, let's get past this, all right? What's going to happen down the road? I don't see any type of fiscal conservatism in the Republican Congress right now.
I think that's if you look at that point, that basically rules over everything. That applies to all of what we're talking about here because it's almost like the SALT deduction. Well, we had people in red states that were affected by lowering the cap on the SALT deduction. And that came back to them. And it's like, well, hold on a second. You stood your ground during that whole battle. And now it's like, yeah, but we can't, we may not be able to toe the line for this whole thing. And I think that's exactly where you get here because you got people that are going to be affected. It's not just liberals that are benefiting from these subsidies. It's like, if it's happening in your district or your state, then that's going on. You're getting the phone calls and they want the subsidies to remain. I think that's where it's going.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my mindset has been almost as if it's a given that it's going to go that way.
Yeah. And I guess that's where my mind is. It's like, okay, we've been doing this now for over 2 weeks. We know what the argument is, but let's get down the road. Will Republicans crumble on this? Is there any type of fiscal conservatism left in the Republican Congress?
Yeah.
Will they actually, do something? Will the subsidies go away as the Democrats said that they would go away? Or is the compromise going to be, all right, we'll give them 90% of what they want?
Right. Yeah.
I just don't see the Republicans going into next year raising the cost of Obamacare by that amount. No. I just don't see it, especially when prices are still the number one problem for Republicans going into the midterms.
Right.
listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. But yeah, at times we just want to cut through all the crap and the entire thing with healthcare, because I've been just hearing so much of it is it is true. The Democrats caused this healthcare crisis. Number one with Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
Number two with the temporary subsidies. The crisis is caused because of the temporary subsidies, and Obamacare is skyrocketing in price.
Right.
But we're at this place today. I'll just say one more time because I just feel it's so imperative to cut through everything here, and because there's just so many paths that people are going down. With the entire shutdown, and when it comes to the subsidies for healthcare, which, by the way, was a completely different argument, and the Republicans have done a good job separating those two. It's a totally different argument than illegals getting healthcare backdoor.
Yeah,
that's
right.
completely a different issue. But we have the healthcare problem in this country for one reason only: Americans don't wish to pay for their own healthcare. That's it.
Right.
That's it.
Yep.
And let me put it this way. Liberals do not want to pay for their own health care.
Right.
Why? Because we saw it in California, Colorado, Vermont. There's my evidence.
Yep.
Every liberal state could have their own state health care. Why won't they do it?
They can't pay for it.
Well, they could pay for it. They don't wish to pay for it.
Well, they could raise the cost of, gasoline to $20 a gallon.
Oh, they always could raise the money.
Yeah, but politically, you can't do that.
Right.
In fact, in California, case in point, the reason they can't pay for it is they couldn't even put a funding mechanism in the bill.
Right.
They know they can't pay for it. They know it would not. There's no way
California
you could make that happen.
California knew if they put a funding mechanism in, the public would say absolutely not.
Right.
So the only recourse you have is to go to the federal government and say we need a nationalized health care system on the federal level because we can borrow it from future generations. We can pay for our health care today on the backs of our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. That's how we'll do it. That's it. There's no other reason, because the ability is there for any blue state to have their own state fully run healthcare system monopoly. And they can put everything that they want in it, but they have to pay for it now, and they have chosen not to do it.
Yep.
The ultimate in greed, the ultimate in selfishness. You saw it in California, Colorado, Vermont.
Yep.
We covered all those since, we've been together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Over the last decade and a half, or 20 years we've been together, but all those were over the last decade and a half. And none of them did it because of cost. And so they go to the federal government, where the federal government can borrow from future generations. And that's supposed to be a good and moral thing. We care about people. We care about people. We care about people.
Yeah.
Hey, you pay for it because we care for them. We're not going to pay for it. You pay for it because we care for them.
Yeah.
And it's time that Republicans just got louder on that and explained and said, if you want a good health care system, you need more competition and you need more transparency. That's what you need.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And nobody's even having that discussion.
No, we're not. No.
It is full on, somebody else needs to pay for it.
Yep. All right, moving on. Woo. The John Bolton indictment.
All right, then.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a broader question on this, because whether it's the Wall Street Journal editorial page, or I've seen it from Andrew McCarthy in National Review. Well, this is just Trump. Trump is going after, these people. When people come after you unfairly, and you believe they've committed crimes, is it wrong to go back at them?
No, if you can demonstrate that they've committed the crimes, it is not.
We've gone through Letitia James and Comey. And we look at Letitia James. There's still a couple of questions in that one, but if they have the documents that they claim they have, she has a problem.
Yeah.
Now, the story about her, one of her relatives or niece or something, staying in the house for no money, we'll see where that goes.
Right.
As for Comey, we'll see who the witnesses are against him, because that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Letitia James case, if you have, she was telling the IRS something different than she was telling the banks.
Right.
And, we'll see. Again, I'm not sitting on the jury. We don't.
Whatever she's claiming now on relatives staying there or any of that is irrelevant, because it only matters what she said at the time she had to sign her name to documents. That's basically what she was doing officially.
Right.
Did she break the law in that regard? That's the question.
And so when you see people that you believe are breaking the law and they've come after you unfairly and made up crimes against you, is there a new morality where you cannot go after them if you believe they actually broke the law? And all these cases, from what I can see, but this isn't a great comparison, all these cases are stronger than the cases against Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to win every one of those cases. They're going to be convicted, but the mortgage fraud for Trump was ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was just, and everybody knows it was ridiculous.
Yep. And, we talked about the Comey case. Depends on, again, the witnesses and what they have, and that's going to be tougher. It should be easier based on Letitia James and what you can show in what she claimed on those documents. Man, the Bolton case, wow.
Well, one more thing, though, on Letitia James, and right to the Bolton case, because it just popped into my head here. We've seen, but we don't prosecute anybody for mortgage fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, no, we heard that from day one. It was, but everybody does it.
Do you?
No.
I don't do it.
Absolutely not.
Any place where it says under the penalty of fraud, perjury, or whatever, I always tell the truth. I don't need that. It's one of the reasons that I only speed 2 or 3 miles an hour over the speed limit.
I won't be talking about how fast I travel over posted speed limits, because what are you, a cop? But I will say this, that if I'm signing my name to a legal document, everything is going to be on the up and up.
Right.
I have a family member who is a notary. That family member, I can, as long as they're not party to the whatever document is being signed, they can notarize it. But I call that a gray area. I don't even go into that gray area. I just go out of my way. Now, again, posted speed limits, I think they're a social construct. But the police may disagree with that.
No,
I live in a school zone, and I'm very aware of the speed limits.
Officer, what did you say? I was going 85 and a 70? No, I self-identified as 71.
I identify as somebody who goes very slow.
Yeah, I self-identify. I was going 70. I don't know what your speed is a social construct.
Yeah. No,
because the Earth is turning.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We're going through space.
Right. the theory of relativity. I don't even know how that applies.
Right. E equals MC squared.
And
just confuse them with BS. It's
right. Exactly.
It doesn't matter whether it makes sense or not.
Right. But it's, you look at those situations, and the question becomes, well, why do they do these things? Why would anybody do these things? Well, they always do it because they think they're going to get away with it.
Prosecutors in the Bolton case said in court papers that Bolton, 76 years of age, shared with two relatives more than 1,000 pages of diary-like entries that contain classified information. By the way, it doesn't matter whether it's the document or whether you transcribe the document in your own in your own words on a piece of paper. That's still a classified document.
Yeah, in the indictment, they refer to it as his diary. He basically made
diary-like entries that contain classified information about his daily activities as National Security Advisor. He would send the entries electronically, sometimes from his private AOL, and go. He should be busted just for that. His private AOL and Google email accounts, prosecutors said the documents don't identify the recipients, but people familiar with the matter said they were his wife and his daughter. The indictment indicates classified information may have been exposed when Iranian hackers got into Bolton's personal email account and gained access to the material he had shared. A Bolton representative told the FBI his emails had been hacked in July of 2021, but did not say the classified information was shared through the account. Bolton described the charges as part of an effort to intimidate Trump critics. I look forward to the fight to defend my lawful conduct and expose his abuse of power, Bolton said in a statement. Let's hear from, this is first Trey Gowdy talking about it on Hannity last night. Okay, all right. Go.
Sean, I cannot tell you and your viewers how serious the information that John Bolton both disseminated to his wife and daughter, that's who the unindicted co-conspirators are, and retained. It is the gravest secrets that this country has. It's the kind of information that gets people killed. Millions of documents over years, and he's out there lecturing, whether it's Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, or anyone else. There are so many clips in this indictment of him having notice and knowledge of how to handle material. All the while he was breaking it. I cannot stress to you the job that Kash Patel and John Lee Ratcliffe did in bringing this case to indictment. The gravest possible danger could have been done to this country, and may well have been done because Iran accessed his email at his home. This is very, very serious.
Now, as I look at these, Jonathan Turley, either Letitia James said that this home in Virginia was her primary residence or not, and said it on multiple occasions and put it in documents. Either John Bolton had this information or he didn't have this information. He shared this information or he didn't. They seem kind of cut and dry. The real charges against Comey, unfortunately, I felt the statute of limitations had run out. Let's get your thoughts.
No, they are cut and dry. As a longtime criminal defense attorney, I got to tell you, 18 counts of this kind really concentrates the mind, because the jurors tend to look at this as a very simple question. Did he have classified information? Did he mishandle it?
There you go. It gets right to that. I mean, that's the cut and dry portion of it.
When you read the indictment, it's like, oh, if all the evidence is true here, they got him.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's here, Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Here's law professor Jonathan Turley. More on the John Bolton situation.
And two arguments will not work in that courtroom. One is that this is all old classified information. It doesn't matter if it's old or brand new. If it's still classified, you violate the statute. The other argument is that everyone does this, that this is, as Abby said, everyone has diaries. Well, that's not going to fly either in that courtroom. I mean, he's going to try, just as Comey's going to try and James is going to try, to bring up a vindictive prosecution claim. Generally, courts don't, and also a selective prosecution, so both of those. Generally, courts do not go for those.
Well, they didn't go for it in the Trump case.
Right.
And in the Trump cases, the selective prosecution didn't matter.
Right.
And they said they were going after them that's why they were running for office.
Mm-hmm.
Both Bragg and Letitia James said that. In general, they didn't even identify what a possible crime might be, and it didn't work for them. I think that's what Turley's trying to say there.
Yeah, it's and on the whole thing, you don't get to just make a diary and make notes of your time in office of whatever position you're in, especially as National Security Advisor. And he talks about in the indictment some of the messages he talked about writing the book, talking to the publisher.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America. We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Wow. Ace Frehley dead at 74.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Yeah,
apparently, he took a fall.
From KISS.
Yeah. As a kid, I was in that age group. KISS was perfect for me to break into rock and roll. Kind of the cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon version of heavy rock. And so I followed KISS early on, from pretty much the beginning. And, it was unique. Again, it was, I don't mean this in a negative way, but it was kind of cartoonish. So a lot of us kids were, really into it. Then as you grow older and it's like, wow, this thing is, it's like still going. Then the 80s thing where they, took off the makeup and Ace Frehley was out of the band based on his issues with drugs and alcohol. He wrote about that in his book, and he said, look, it's not a birthright to be in KISS, even as a founding member. And if you, don't live up to the standards, you don't get to wear the uniform. And if you look at how Paul Stanley, the other Paul, Ace Frehley's first name is actually Paul, but Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons ran the business, especially by that time. I mean, you're talking about, I don't know how much in marketing,
hundreds of millions,
and just
over the period of time.
Yeah, and it's not just like T-shirts at a concert. They had action figures. They had, it was crazy because of the characters they built. They could play it that way, and it was unbelievable how much money they had pouring in. But Ace Frehley, highly regarded as a guitarist because he was a guy who established his own style, self-taught, and really, I think, was the backbone of that sound. But his solos, were just incredible. Again, it was a mixture of style and showmanship, the whole thing of the smoking guitar and sparks coming out of the guitar and all that. that's what it was about. It was about be a showman up there, but also you gotta do the job.
Well,
you music,
can say that
know?
probably every single rock band I'm going to see Trans-Siberian. You see the show. It's just not the music. It's the show behind it. It's the pyrotechnics. It's just everything. And even though they don't dress up like Kiss, it probably would hurt a little maybe the Christmas spirit of it if they all came out dressed like Kiss.
Yeah.
But the fact is today that's almost a necessity in the vast majority of bands. Now, I'm being 10 years older than you. I come from a different perspective. I remember the first Kiss album, and I didn't know. I mean, I hadn't seen them really dressed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking it's a pretty good album. The guitar work was pretty good on that album. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then when they came out, for me, I was more into prog rock, heavy rock at that point, mid to late 70s. And I did see something that made me laugh yesterday. It said, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, the Beth Rockers. Said the Beth Rockers.
Okay.
I'm like,
that was one of their songs, but yeah. All right.
I was like, the Beth Rockers. It was like, that's like coming out and saying, Alice Cooper, the only women bleed
rockers.
Yeah.
Pick their biggest, their pretty much only ballad.
Exactly. It's just like you had to pick that one. So, we're really, some of the Rush documentaries over the past couple of years talking about how they toured with Kiss. And, of course, a lot of their loyal fans going, why the hell did you tour with Kiss? Because they asked us. We weren't anything back then.
Right.
And so we needed the exposure.
Van Halen, I mean, you look at so many groups that but had a hand up because of Kiss along the way, yeah.
But you're right, because Gene Simmons was instrumental in getting Van Halen to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about it. I forgot about that. Yeah. Absolutely instrumental and getting them noticed and getting them the first record deal and
right.
And all that. But I'll never forget the members of Rush talking about the fact that whenever you think about their music, we're different. Obviously we're different from them. They said, but we learned so much about them, so much about the professionalism of the business.
Right. Yeah.
That you need to take it seriously.
Right.
And you see that from a band like Rush that really, they were more about the music, the presentation, maybe not, I still like the video of them in Brazil with the washing machines behind.
Yeah.
I'm like, who thought that one? But it was still, I still watch. I go, that's one of the coolest rock videos ever.
Yeah.
And I was never a huge Rush fan. Like, I mean, I've come to appreciate them a lot more based on everything else in prog rock. And I think I told you one time, even though I do have tickets to their next tour.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Fly By Night
I've never seen them.
Fly By Night was one of those that me and my friends in Del Rio, we were listening to that album from Rush, but also, in that same era, wasn't the exact same time, but the same era that we were picking up on Rush, Kiss was, again, just emerging as this big global phenomenon. And then they all came out with solo albums, but it was released at the same time. So basically they were selling 4 for 1, which frankly is a kind of a genius idea because you're going to buy all 4. I didn't buy all 4, but that's the idea. I bought Ace Frehley's. That was the album. I thought, no, I'm going to buy Ace's album, because I couldn't afford 4 albums at once. That wasn't going to happen. But I did buy his album. And yeah, he had a hit song, Back in the New York Groove, which was not a Kiss-like song. It kind of had an old school feel to it, a straight beat to it. That kind of thing, is, again, when you look at the background of them as musicians, all right, collectively, they were a great band. Is Gene Simmons the best bass player? Is Paul Stanley the greatest singer. Is Ace Frehley the greatest guitarist?
No.
It all worked. I would say, though, that of any of those individuals in terms of their workmanship influencing others out of those four, it probably was Ace Frehley influencing other guitarists.
No, I would agree with you on that. If you talk about the musician part of Kiss, I would say the same thing. But really what, because of Gene Simmons' prominence just in other areas and, his reality shows and everything else.
Yeah.
The one thing that came out of Kiss for me, I mean, looking at it from when they first came out, I was still a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at it today is Gene Simmons' love for the United States.
Yeah.
Because of, going from being in music radio and talk radio and everything else, what has impacted me emotionally the most about that band, and probably Paul Stanley too, because I think they think the same way, the appreciation, especially Gene Simmons coming from Israel, the appreciation of the United States of America and what it stands for. That really, to me, has even superseded any of their music.
Yeah.
Just the fact of how appreciative he is, and what a special place he believes the United States is, which, again, you get from people that have immigrated here to the United States,
right,
that we've said many times they understand the United States better than people that were born and raised here.
Right. Well, and you look at like band breakups and everything else, that kind of drama, while it's, I don't know, mildly intriguing for me, you look at the business of a band and the machine that Kiss became, and it's like, okay, you can't keep doing it if your mind isn't right. And I think Ace, in his book, finally, acknowledged that and said, look, you don't get to wear the uniform. And that's, I think, with any organization, because I've always been fascinated by, even as a young kid, the business model behind, all right, you're telling me these grown men put on these costumes and this makeup. At some point, they had to start that, right? They had to go to a club.
Right, yeah.
And I think the same with Sabbath. Ozzy was as a young person, very awkward looking. They were trying to do like a horror movie in music, basically, is what I try and describe. If people aren't familiar with Sabbath, what the intent is, right? That's the idea. And it turned into something, and Sabbath, it turned into something massive. But for Kiss, there was this brand that you really couldn't break. I mean, they really had to stick to that brand if it was going to maintain that level as a machine going forward. The 80s, I didn't care for that, a lot of the stuff in the 80s, but
I always thought of that too. When they did that, I went, why?
Yeah.
This is your brand. Stick with your brand.
Stick with your brand. Yeah.
Don't do that. The other thing is, it's a great lesson when you think about Ace Frehley about drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And I've always thought it in rock bands and anything that, I look at the things in my life, because I think we all say maybe at one point in our lives, there, for the grace of God go I, there, but for the grace of God go I. When it comes to it, I know that what helped keep me from doing the wrong things was my love for doing this. Mm-hmm. And my love for golfing and my love for, just doing a bunch of different things that I wanted to do that you couldn't do if you were hungover or high or whatever. And I've always looked at rock bands and went, why did they automatically jump to that? Because to me, it would always be the focus, because they always talk about, well, we did it because, the whole Billy Joel thing. And I think also, what's his name? Keith Partridge. David Cassidy talked about it too. Mm-hmm. Millions of screaming people. Then Peter Tork talked about it in the Monkees. People going crazy. then backstage, tunnels, limo, back room to the hotel room, repeat, screaming people. But I look at it differently. It's like, well, no, you perform, and then you rest up so you can perform again.
Yeah.
If I was going to do that, it was a rock star. I'd be like, when I go on vacation, I'll drink.
Yeah.
But it's just, to me, I would want to just everything, and maybe it's the competitive part of me, and I would just assume you have that competitiveness when you're in a rock band. I don't know why so many went, to the point of excess in everything, and then went, well, I'm only going to live till 30 or 35 anyway. That attitude I could never. When I was 20, to sit there and say, well, it's going to be a 10-year career and then I'll die in my 30s. I can't imagine having that mindset.
The 70s and 80s were a different monster in terms of the after show scene. I can't imagine. I was in a garage band, and we would occasionally open for national acts, and I kind of got the idea. It's like, oh, okay, everybody's partying. I didn't want to be a big part of that. I didn't like the idea of traveling, living on the road, being a nomad for a living. I didn't like that idea at all. But also being, surrounded by a lot of people you don't know, not the people that come to see you, but after the show and in other scenarios, and they may or may not have your direct interest or the same interests at heart.
Oh,
but in the 70s and 80s, I can't imagine being a member of KISS or this massive, world famous, but also your face isn't known. You're not wearing makeup at the after party. Not then. And his face wasn't known yet. So, I remember there would be all of these magazines would try and get them a picture of them without their makeup, before they actually took the makeup off. But certainly, he had people that he hung out with, and those rock stars back then, you filled a room with people. And I think part of it is what they call the imposter syndrome. I don't know if that applies to Ace or not, but so many of them talk about it and write about it. The imposter syndrome, it's like, and I think it comes from that idea that Billy Joel said, last play at Shea. You go home and you're just, 3 hours earlier, people were shouting your name and singing your song, and you're a rock star, and then you go home and you're a guy in front of the TV watching infomercials.
But you know something? I just realized why I couldn't do it, and you mentioned it. The after-show parties, all the people hanging on to you, who you have no idea who they are, what their motivations are.
Right.
That's not me.
I didn't like that idea.
That would never be me. It would be whatever business people I'm dealing with, the crew, whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
If you're on tour.
Yeah.
But strange people in there offering me everything on the. I wouldn't. That's just not me.
Yeah,
I
would be horribly homesick in a moment like that.
Yeah.
And that is the worst feeling.
And I would always be asking, what's your motivation? I don't care whether it's women throwing themselves at me or whatever at that point who I don't know. It's like, just enjoy everything. I'd be like,
well, somebody else
stay away from me. I don't trust anything.
Even somebody else who is famous, and that, might be one of your peers, as they say. You don't know why they're there.
Yes.
And you don't know. Again, it's just it has to be a very strange feeling,
because you're not normally meeting a person the way you would normally meet a person to develop a relationship with them.
Exactly.
It's almost instant gratification and ultimate pleasure now.
Right.
And I'm sort of like, the cynicism in me would say it really doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it doesn't for me. Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Autumn for gardeners usually means harvest and preparing the garden for overwintering and next spring. What if the garden bug continues to itch in the early fall? Kansas State University Extension Cynthia Domagini offers this idea.
Consider growing a fall crop of leafy greens, and you can continue reseeding those until you get into a hard freeze. That's a fun crop to grow in the fall because you can get regrowth and extend your gardening season, basically.
And when that first frost occurs, what are protection considerations for tender vegetables?
Individually cover plants. Some people even use empty plastic milk jugs where they cut the bottom of the jug out and they can place that over the top of a sensitive plant. But you can also use blankets or sheet of plastic to create a low tunnel or row cover over multiple plants to extend the amount of time that you're able to be harvesting.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up, more on the John Bolton thing, and also compare that to the Pete Hegseth whole Pentagon thing, which we talk about, what's top secret and what's not top secret, and a whole bunch more, too, coming up.
Red Eye Radio live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Last hour we played some audio from Trey Gowdy and also Jonathan Turley, constitutional law professor, on the whole John Bolton situation. They said this is serious. Either it was classified or it wasn't, is what they're saying. So I wanted to see if anybody on the other side was defending Bolton on it, except for when you see, read the Wall Street Journal editorial that was talking about the fact that, this is Trump striking back at his enemies, but they don't get into as specifically as Trey Gowdy did or Bolton or Jonathan Turley did, saying, look, either it's classified or it's not. But here's Xochitl Hinojosa, who is former Biden Department public affairs official. Now, the interesting thing is she's very critical of John Bolton. I wonder if she was very critical of Joe Biden having classified material in so many places. Remember, there's a difference after you get out of office between, for example, or even being in your home, of a national security advisor. Now, you said he had a skiff room in his house.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, that then was approved, but that's when he was in office.
Right.
Not after he's out of office.
Right.
And Joe Biden was a senator. There's a difference between that and the negotiation of classified materials between the National Archives and a president who has left office. Completely different ballgame. But here's the former Biden Department public affairs official.
I had a clearance, and whenever you go through the training to have a security clearance, you are always told about the handling of classified information and exactly how you must handle it and how you cannot take it home. And I'll point out, you were reading his statement earlier today. They talk about how these are handwritten notes. Handwritten notes doesn't necessarily mean it's no longer classified. It just means that the classified information is somewhere else, just like whether it's on a signal chat or whether it's in your notes. It needs to stay in a SCIF. And so this is the worst case scenario for the intelligence community. The intelligence community often fears of leaks. They often fear of spills. There are spills with a number of various former government officials where it was a mistake, et cetera. They had classified information. They didn't know that they had it, et cetera. But this is something a little bit different. This is what got into the hands of the wrong people. And he knew that he had the classified information, and he knew that there was a leak, and he did not notify the federal government. And so these are very serious allegations. I think that the indictment just says that.
I think his lawyer said he did talk about the Iranians. He did tell the FBI about it, and they investigated it.
That actually, I think, is in the PDF.
So I think she's wrong there.
Yeah,
where she said that.
Here it is from the indictment. On or about July 6, 2021, a representative for Bolton contacted the FBI via email to alert the FBI that an entity believed by Bolton's representative to be the Islamic Republic of Iran had obtained unauthorized access to one of Bolton's personal email accounts. In the email to the FBI, Bolton's representative stated that, quote, evidently someone has gotten into Ambassador Bolton's personal email account and that it looks as though it is someone in Iran, end quote. So
she said leak, so I don't know. Maybe she wasn't referring to the same thing.
Oh,
That's what I assumed
Okay.
she meant, but she wasn't specific on that in that audio cut. Abby Lowell, the lawyer for Bolton, said, like many public officials throughout history, Bolton kept diaries. That is not a crime. It is if it's top secret material.
Yeah. Yeah.
In what he described as diary entries, Bolton detailed information he learned in meetings with military officials, foreign leaders, and members of the intelligence community, some which prosecutors said had been classified at its highest levels. The day before he took over as National Security Advisor, prosecutors said Bolton set up a group chat with the two relatives, telling them it was for diary in the future. By the way, this goes back to something that you said a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
About Bolton.
I firmly believe it.
You believe that he accepted the National Security Advisor so he could write a book.
I think he probably either right about the time he accepted that position or maybe ahead of it was talking to book publishers. I've always believed that was the sole reason for him taking that
because
job.
right here, the day before he took over as National Security Advisor, prosecutors said Bolton set up a group chat with the two relatives telling them it was, quote, for diary in the future.
Yeah. And there's only one reason you keep that. It's not worth anything. You're not going to keep it to reminisce on your back porch later. You're going to sell it as a book.
Yes, I've taken a diary of every single show we've ever done, and I plan on reading it when I retire and I sit on my porch.
You remember that time, honey, that I told then President Trump that he should bomb Iran? Remember that? I made the notes right here. Look. Isn't that something?
In July 2018, he sent the group a 24-page document with the follow-up message saying none of which we talk about, according to court documents. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right there, saying things like that. He referred to the relatives as his editors, promised them more diary entries, and talked about how the material would be used in his memoir. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Bolton also unlawfully stored documents, writings, notes about national defense at his home in Maryland, prosecutors said. The Justice Department during Trump's first term sued Bolton and launched a criminal investigation into whether he unlawfully disclosed classified information, which offered a scathing assessment of Trump's presidency. The lawsuit said that while an initial government review had judged the manuscript to be free of classified information, other senior officials later determined that it still contained some. The Justice Department escalated the fight months later, launching a criminal probe into Bolton's handling of the information and issuing grand jury subpoenas to him and his literary agent. The Justice Department during the Biden administration dropped the lawsuit and the grand jury probe in 2021.
Why?
But later reopened the investigation, people familiar with the matter said. So, wow. Now, when you look at everything this week, first off, you notice how the whole Pete Hegseth, I don't even know what you call it, rules and regulations for the press. You notice how that story has died?
Yeah, it didn't really go anywhere, did it?
It didn't go anywhere because, except for OAN, from what I can see, every single Trump and or conservative publication also said, were out.
Yeah.
They all
Right.
cleared their desks.
Right.
And you're talking about Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking Newsmax.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking, from what I read, Washington Times, Washington Beacon. I don't know about the New York Post. I didn't see them on the list.
I didn't
see the New York
either.
Post.
Yeah.
Or would they be in the category of tabloid? No.
The hotheads over at the Pentagon decided to the way they write. Decided to bomb the scumbags in Iran.
But the messaging coming out of the Pentagon, because I think they know at that point that, I don't know if they thought they were going to get a victory out of this or what by publicizing it. I don't know if they expected that so many Trump supporting or conservative media, because a lot of the conservative media may not support Trump on all the issues, but legally in his fight against lawfare, they supported the Constitution and the law, which by default was in favor of Trump's position.
Yeah.
Look, even if it wasn't what they originally intended to do. But when I look at both of these, one of the problems is, and Newsmax was blunt. We read what Newsmax said.
Mm-hmm.
Newsmax said, nope, they can't tell us that we can't publish classified information.
Yeah.
They can't do that. We're gone. And what it comes down to, a couple of things. First off, when you take both those stories, the Pentagon story and the Bolton story, or you could go back to the Biden story, there's a twofold problem. First, there's a concern that we classify information that doesn't need to be classified. And we know that's the case. So much was classified. For example, we used the example yesterday on the Trump-Russia collusion. Not because it was classified. There was no harm to anything of the national security of the United States.
Right.
I believe all those things were held classified because they knew that if they were declassified, we'd realize that Trump was set up by the Hillary campaign. And so they didn't want that known. So they classify. I'm not involved in the classifying or declassifying of any top secret material. But we know they will classify just to keep the press from getting it.
Well, that's the biggest concern. If I'm looking at this from somebody who's running a news organization.
Right.
It sounds like you're basically going to hand me scripts that are approved, stories or whatever, that are approved, and that's a press release factory, and I don't need to be in the building for that. You can fax that to me.
Well, that's the story that first came out, and they claimed, Parnell claimed that wasn't the case.
Well,
and then he said 2 days ago that everybody's reading it wrong. The statement is just an acknowledgement that you know what their rules are.
That sounds like walking it back.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But so you've got that one problem where the media, even Trump-supporting media, well, number one, they just said Democrats get into office, this policy is the same. We're not going to follow it.
Right.
But as we've talked about before, we know without question things are classified that don't need to be classified just to hide it from the public. And when I say hide it from the press, it means hide it from the public. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with national security. You hide it to keep it from the public. You don't want to know the public that's going on. On the other hand, when it comes to classified information that actually matters, there seems to be this cavalier attitude of, it's no big deal.
Right, yeah.
So on both ends, you've got a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. But again, it's not just that there's a concern about classified information. It just seems like, well, wait a minute. You get to decide, basically, the Pentagon's going to get to decide what we report. And it doesn't work that way.
Well, and the other thing is Hegseth in the Signal chat.
Yeah.
The conservative media is saying, what are you telling us? We all know that he shouldn't have released any of that information on Signal chat. It was while an operation was going. That is assumed to all be top secret. You're the damn Secretary of War?
Yeah.
I want to make sure. Do I have to make sure I got it right?
We never commented on the name change.
Well, I'm not so much worried about the name change as I am the actual behavior and function of those departments.
Well, it's better than the first name they chose. The Department of Put a Boot in Your Ass.
Right.
I thought that's not a good one.
I like that one. That one I like.
I would have worn that T-shirt.
But the fact is, even conservative media and Trump-supporting media look at that and go, come on, what are you talking about?
Right.
You didn't seem to care about things that should be considered unauthorized and or top secret to report in the Signal chat with the Yemen attack.
Right.
And by the way, the Inspector General has presented that to Hegseth. He's reviewing it, and after he reviews it, it doesn't mean they'll change it. He gets to review it.
Right.
So we'll find out about that, what they find probably in the next month. 866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Speaker Mike Johnson said this yesterday, and Eric, apparently you disagreed with his comment here. Let me play it. Here we go.
CNN hosts the first socialist town hall where Bernie Sanders and AOC said the quiet parts out loud.
What did you disagree with there?
That is not the first CNN socialist town hall. That happened in 2008. So we know Speaker Johnson is relatively young.
That's right.
But
remember, he said he was a kid when Schumer first got into office.
Right. Yeah. We remember.
His memory doesn't go back that far to 2008.
That's when it happened.
Like, what are you talking about? The first socialist town hall?
Yeah, are you kidding me? It's CNN, by the way. They don't even need to host anybody on it. It could just be on CNN.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.